Speaker-designate Thissen, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us about the upcoming 2013 legislative session.
Thanks for having me.
How do you see your role as Speaker of the House?
Well, I think a couple things. One of the things I think we learned a lot from this election is people really want to make sure that our legislature and our state government in general, is working effectively, is working in a business-like manner, is getting their work done, and I hope to instill that in the House of Representatives through how we conduct ourselves, and then the Speaker's job is also kind of as a custodian of this institution. And one of the things I hope that we do this time is remember that we're here for a short period of time, and there were folks that were here for a long period of time before us that left a great legacy for us, and there'll be people long after us in this institution. We should respect the institution as an institution and make sure that we're living up to that legacy.
The last time the DFL had control over both the legislative and executive branch was during the 1989-1990 legislative session. Now that you have control once again of both branches, are there any issues that before you didn't have enough support on, but now will, and we'll see them passed into law?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we've seen over the last decade of divided government is an inability to kind of take on the big challenges we have in this space, in the state. The aging of our population, structural budget deficits kind of just about every year, investments in education as our education system is changing, immigration. And I hope that with this, without having kind of the partisan bickering and the ideological fights, we're going to be able to practically attack some of those big challenges. And I think that is really what presents us with the best opportunity.
Well, talking about one of those big challenges is the $1.1 billion shortfall.
Right.
Do you support a combination of budget cuts and tax increases on higher wage earners?
Well, I think we have to do a combination, and I hope that our budget discussion this time, whether it's on the tax side or on the spending side, is not about just filling a particular hole and getting to a certain budget number, but it's about making the right decisions for Minnesota's future. And so I think that there will be cuts just because there's some programs that we no longer need that aren't serving their purposes anymore, as opposed to just cutting for cutting's sake. I also think that we are going to need some more revenues to get this structural budget deficit balanced once and for all, to pay off the remainder of the school shift, and then as we look forward, to make our tax system more competitive and reflect the economy that we have today. So to your specific question, I do think that there's a place in our tax system. If what I heard on the campaign trails, people want investment in education, in infrastructure. They want to make sure that we're bringing down property taxes, and I think as a means of accomplishing that, asking the wealthiest Minnesotans to pay a little more is something that we'll strongly consider.
What issues do you think you can get bipartisan support on?
I think that one of the things that we're going to be able to do, for instance, with the tax reform, which is part of solving the budget deficit, is do a comprehensive look at our tax system, so we're not pulling out one particular tax or another. And I hope that will mean we actually can make some reductions in certain taxes, for instance, like the corporate tax. And if we do that and put the right package together, I do think we can get bipartisan support.
What are some of your other priorities for the upcoming legislative session?
Well, the first and foremost, and this is the other thing we heard on the campaign trail, is making sure that we do something about property taxes and the property tax increases. I would like to see us reprioritize investment in education, particularly in early childhood and higher education. I think those are two places that set our state up for the future, perhaps more than anything else. I hope that we do some investment in infrastructure, because I think now is the time with low interest rates and a lot of projects to be done. It makes sense to do that. We have to get the health insurance exchange done and done well. So we have a big list of things we need to accomplish. But first and foremost, again, it's balancing the budget.
When the Republicans were in the majority, they put forth two constitutional amendments before voters, one on same-sex marriage, the other one on voter ID. Can Minnesotans expect that there will be another constitutional amendment coming from the DFL majority?
I think that's very unlikely that we'll see any constitutional amendments. I think people are tired of the constitutional amendments. I also think that part of the discussion and the defeat of those amendments was they thought that wasn't the appropriate way to govern in Minnesota. And so I think that we'll take that into consideration as we move forward. So I see the likelihood of that pretty slim.
Do you see any issues moving forward in your agenda that some may view as controversial?
Yeah, well, I think it's likely that kind of any little steps we take will be viewed as controversial by some, right? Uh, but my attitude toward that is we need to do the right thing, by Minnesotans, and our larger perspective. And I think this really is the other thing, in addition to kind of government working again, that the election was about, was how do we grow our economy in a way that works for middle class families, and that's going to be the overarching um, lens through which I kind of view all of our policy initiatives. And if people want to define some of the things we want to do as controversial, well, that's going to be, I guess, how it is. But we have some big things we have to tackle, and I don't want to shy away from those.
Why are you seeking to establish a select committee on living wage jobs, and what will be its focus?
Even as we're growing jobs, as our economy is recovering, those jobs aren't paying what they used to pay. And that is increasing the squeeze on mainly middle class families. And so we want to take a look at why that's happening, what it is in our economy. It's not going to be all, certainly not going to be all government solutions, but try to understand why that's happening, and are there measures we can take in the state of Minnesota that will start to reverse that trend? Because at the end of the day, there's no better public policy than having a family where the mom and dad are both employed, and employed in a way that kind of matches up with the hard work that they're doing.
Do you expect then this committee to draft any legislation?
Well, I think the goal of the committee is to go out and ask those questions, to come back with a report and some proposed legislation. The committee itself won't pass legislation because it's a unique kind of committee. But I'm hopeful that this will generate a lot of ideas, and Minnesotans will really participate in this process.
In light of the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, the issue of school safety is being raised. Would your caucus support additional gun regulations?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, this terrible tragedy, and as a parent, you can imagine your kids and what that must feel like. You can't imagine; it's unimaginable. But again, has raised this issue of safety in our schools and in our society in general. So I expect there's going to be a vigorous discussion around what we can do to address the school safety issue. Some of it will look at guns and how we regulate or don't regulate guns, acknowledging that the Supreme Court has been very clear that the Second Amendment is a real and broad constitutional right. That doesn't mean that we can't do things. Even the First Amendment, our kind of most fundamental constitutional right, has exceptions for, if you yell fire in a crowded theater, right? That's not protected. So I think there's things that we can look at there. I think we need to look at some of the mental health issues that are kind of revolving around this issue of gun safety. I guess the one thing that I expect that we won't pass is arming teachers and other people going into schools.
Do you have any idea about what the first bill will be offered up this legislative session? What that will be on?
We haven't figured that out yet, and we're going to continue to look at that. I mean, one of the things we really want to do is deliver on the promises we made on the campaign trail, and they were fairly specific, and so you may see that reflected in some of our first bills.
Would you support a bonding bill? And what projects and in what part of the state do you think needs addressing?
Yeah, I think we should do a bonding bill this year. I'm very interested in that. One thing is we have to address the next stage of this building. We're kind of midway through construction, the state capitol, and they need some additional money to keep that going so the project doesn't shut down and then has to start up again. That makes good sense to me. And then I hope we're emphasizing kind of very, basically bread and butter issues that'll grow our economy: wastewater infrastructure, roads and bridges, perhaps some transit infrastructure, the civic centers around the state that really are catalysts for economic development in our regional centers. I think all those things will be on the table, and we'll come up with a bill that's prudent, that's within our guidelines, but that takes advantage of kind of the historical low rates that we have right now, and moves Minnesota forward.
How will you determine if this legislative session was a success?
I think if the people of Minnesota, after we come out of it, say that these folks governed well, that they got their work done in a way that befits the dignity of this institution and this state, if we made life a little bit better for Minnesota middle-class families and gave opportunity for people who are below the middle class to move up, then I think we'll be able to judge this session a success. And if we get the budget balanced in a structurally sound way.
As minority leader, you undoubtedly learned about time management. How do you strike a balance between home life and work life? And are there any hobbies that you enjoy outside of work?
I think that idea of balancing home and my other job and this job is something that most Minnesotans struggle with these days. We're very busy people in Minnesota and in this country. You know, my wife and 3 kids, we do try to spend a lot of time when we're not here, you know, going to sporting events and doing all those kinds of things. I think we've struck a decent balance right now. It can always, you know, it's always a challenge though. You know, in terms of hobbies, a lot of it is, you know, or what I do outside the Capitol. A lot of it is going to kids events, you know, sporting events and those kind of things. I like to go see live music a lot. That kind of keeps things fresh, I think. But if I had my druthers, I mean, I would probably curl up with a book and read. So.
Do you have any final thoughts going into this legislative session?
Well, you know, I'm really hopeful that we're going to be able to make the state of Minnesota proud and to honor the trust that they put in us to govern this state. You know, as we've mentioned throughout the course of this interview, this is a unique kind of once-in-a-generation opportunity, and I really, really want to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Speaker-designate Thissen, for your time.
Thank you.